Well, the televangelist Paula White is getting ready for Easter by selling 7 supernatural blessings for the low, low price of just $1,000. White, who calls herself a preacher of the prosperity gospel, telling viewers of her Paula White Ministries that for $1,000, the good Lord will assign an angel to you. For just $1,000, you get your own angel, and that angel will take away all your sickness. So who needs Medicare? Paula White heads the Trump White House's Faith and Opportunity Office, which was set up to protect faith-based organizations from the government. You know, like locking up charlatans selling phony miracle cures for $1,000. When these people talk religious liberty, they mean the liberty, the freedom to hide behind the cross of Jesus while stealing people's money. Alina Habba, the New Jersey strip mall attorney who helped Donald Trump lose his Manhattan criminal trial and his civil lawsuit, leaving him owing the state of New York $500 million in fines for defrauding banks and lenders. She will be leaving her new job as White House advisor in order to serve as interim U.S. attorney for the District of New Jersey. This will make Alina Habba New Jersey's top federal law enforcement official, targeting securities fraud, tax evasion, money laundering, bribery, and organized crime, all subjects that 4 years working for Trump has made her an expert in. The Trump administration announced it would defund a national database tracking domestic terrorism, hate crimes, and school shootings, because why provide evidence that proves your domestic policy is killing us? For decades, Republicans have opposed the Justice Department keeping a national database on school shootings, claiming it's a waste of money and, of course, government overreach. But what they're really afraid of is providing incontrovertible evidence that there is a direct link between easy access to assault weapons and dead children. Since the Obama administration, Republicans have actively fought the Department of Homeland Security from keeping track of domestic terrorists. Janet Napolitano, Obama's first director of Homeland Security, prepared a report back in 2009 showing that our nation's biggest threat comes not from Arab terrorists overseas, but homegrown militia members with guns. Republicans try to kill that report from ever seeing the light of day because those gun-toting anti-government terrorists vote Republican. As for getting rid of the hate crimes database, Republicans don't believe there is such a thing as a hate crime. Well, of course not. Their entire party is a hate crime. The Hate Crime Statistics Act was signed into law by the first President Bush back in 1990, and by the time Trump left office the first time, hate crimes had reached an all-time high as white nationalists felt free to target blacks, women, Muslims, Arabs, Jews, immigrants, and of course, members of the LGBTQ community. Hey, if the government stops keeping a database of school shootings, hate crimes, and domestic terrorism, it becomes harder to make the case that America's biggest threat is white, far-right, Christian nationalist males. The Supreme Court, since we're talking about white, far-right, Christian nationalist males, ruled to uphold Joe Biden's executive order banning the sale of ghost guns. Ghost guns are do-it-yourself kits that allow consumers who want to bypass what little gun laws we do have by purchasing online separate, easy-to-snap-together parts of a gun. Justice Neil Gorsuch, a Trump appointee, wrote the 7-2 majority opinion. Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito dissented. The New York Times reporting that during oral arguments, Alito maintained that parts of a firearm are not a firearm. According to the Times, Alito said, quote, if I put on a counter some eggs, some chopped up ham, some chopped up pepper and onions, is that a Western omelet? No, that's contents of your skull, Samuel Alito. Kash Patel, the new head of the FBI, announcing a special task force to investigate attacks against Tesla dealerships, and Tesla charging stations. The Justice Department has already charged 3 people with domestic terrorism for tossing Molotov cocktails at 3 separate Tesla facilities. By the way, Tesla, it's an electric vehicle. Donald Trump was reelected running against electric vehicles, and now he's diverting all our federal law enforcement resources to protect electric vehicles. I wonder if this is because Elon Musk invested $300 million last year to get Trump elected. Think that might have something to do with it? Meanwhile, Donald Trump perpetuating the lie spread by Elon Musk that George Soros is behind all these Tesla attacks. Yes, one of the world's richest men is angry about Elon Musk slashing his Medicare and Social Security. Blaming George Soros is a page out of the Authoritarian playbook. You dismiss genuine anger by claiming it's either outside agitators or paid protesters. You never acknowledge that grassroots protesters, or in this case, criminals, the people attacking Teslas are criminals. You never acknowledge that they are genuinely angry about Elon Musk destroying our government. You always say these people are paid by some dark force. Mike Johnson, the speaker, and Donald Trump are saying all the angry town halls where Republican members of Congress are getting booed, all those town halls, they say, are the result of outside agitators paid to disrupt the meetings, because who could possibly be against slashing government programs to give the richest 1% a $5 trillion tax cut? It would have to be paid protesters. Why does Musk, why does Trump, why does Mike Johnson get away with saying these things? Because too many people here in the United States believe in what is called American exceptionalism. These rubes can't believe that the tricks being played on them right now are actually time-worn scams that have been used in laboratories of anti-democracy around the world since the 1920s. They're being used right now in Russia, Hungary. They were used in South America during the 70s. There is nothing original going on here. This is how democracies always die. There's a playbook. And Trump, Musk, Russell Vought, Mike Johnson, the MAGA Republicans are working off this playbook. What's happening to us right now in the United States isn't new. You're not special, America. And in thinking you are exceptional, well, that's how countries flatter themselves into extinction. Donald Trump telling Newsmax that the nearly 1,500 January 6ers he pardoned should be financially compensated for what the Biden Justice Department put them through. Financially compensated. Hey, why don't you forgive their student debt? Because when I look at all the people who stormed the Capitol on January 6, I see thousands of men who can't pay back the loans they took in order to pursue a degree in higher education. Forgive their student loans. Trump ordered all the FBI's Crossfire Hurricane documents to be declassified in order to prove the entire Russia investigation was a hoax. Crossfire Hurricane was the name of the FBI investigation launched in 2016 after it became apparent to our intelligence agencies that Vladimir Putin was assisting Trump in defeating Hillary Clinton. Trump calls it the Russia hoax. So, forget the Mueller report concluding Russia interfered on Trump's behalf in the 2016 presidential election. Forget Dan Coates, Trump's very own director of national intelligence, telling Bob Woodward last year that he's convinced Putin is blackmailing Trump. Forget all the Trump White House officials who had to be pardoned after being found guilty of lying about their Russian connections. Forget that Trump's first impeachment was over holding up a shipment of weapons to Ukraine to help in their war against Russia. Just look at Donald Trump's current foreign policy vis-a-vis Europe, Ukraine, and Russia, and you tell me if Russiagate was a hoax. Here's the thing about being a Russian asset. You don't know you're a Russian asset. If Trump had been smart enough to figure out that he was a Russian asset, do you think Putin would have identified him as a potential Russian asset? That's how spycraft works. You find an easily flattered, borderline personality with delusions of grandeur who couldn't possibly believe he's being manipulated by a foreign government. I think if you put Donald Trump under a lie detector or sodium pentothal, he wouldn't believe he was lying when he called it all a hoax, because he's mentally ill and he's stupid, which is why Vladimir Putin picked him out of the chorus line to be a Russian asset. You might remember the FBI director at the time was James Comey, Mr. False Equivalency, who wanted to appear fair. He figured if the FBI during the 2016 presidential election was investigating Trump, then they had to investigate Hillary Clinton, even though she had already been put through the meat grinder over Benghazi and they couldn't find anything. So to appear fair, because he figured Hillary was going to defeat Clinton, Comey, just 11 days before the presidential election, announced he was reopening the investigation into Hillary Clinton's use of a private email server while she was serving as Obama's Secretary of State. The FBI's and the Justice Department's official protocol is never file charges against a politician in the weeks leading up to an election, but Comey sent letters to several congressional committees going public and said the FBI was reopening its investigation into Hillary Clinton's use of a private email server. He did this 11 days before the election. The FBI, the Justice Department, never ever officially announces that it's conducting an investigation because publicity impedes the investigation. So it was an extraordinary breach of decorum on Comey's part, but he did it because he knew Hillary was going to win and she was going to be his next boss, and he wanted to prove he wasn't playing favorites. If we're going to secretly investigate Trump for his Russia connections, he figured, it's only fair that we openly go public into our investigation into Hillary's use of a private email server. The American people in the lead up to the 2016 election were never told about Crossfire Hurricane. But to be fair, Comey publicly announced 11 days before the election he was reopening the investigation into Hillary Clinton, providing Trump with the ammunition to declare on the campaign trail, quote, Hillary Clinton's corruption is on a scale we have never seen before. So, is that why Hillary Clinton lost the Electoral College in 2016? Let's just say it didn't help. But law enforcement always holds Republicans to a lower standard because the FBI, the Justice Department, and local police just assume Republicans are stupid and don't know any better. But Democrats like Hillary Clinton or Bill Clinton are held to a much higher standard and are way more susceptible to prosecution because they're intelligent and they know better. Hillary used a private email server. There was no evidence of a security breach. Ivanka and Jared, months later, in 2017, when Trump took office, when they came into the White House, they used their own private email server. But Republicans turned Hillary's email server into something it wasn't. And Marco Rubio, who was running for president in 2016 and then endorsed Trump, on the subject of Hillary's email server back then, the New York Times quoting Rubio as saying, quote, people are going to be held accountable if they broke the laws of this country. Nobody's above the law, not even Hillary Clinton. But yesterday, when asked about the Trump White House group chat during the Houthi airstrikes, our Secretary of State Rubio said, yeah, obviously someone made a big mistake, but there's no need for a criminal investigation. Well, it wasn't just a big mistake. They violated the Espionage Act. The Pentagon had already warned against using Signal, that's the app deployed for those group chats. Senator Mark Warner, Democrat from Virginia, the ranking Democrat on the Senate Intelligence Committee, saying Mike Waltz, our national security advisor who set up that group chat, and Pete Hegseth, the defense secretary who splayed open the attack plans in real time in the group chat, he's saying they must resign. House Republican Don Bacon from Nebraska said he has no doubt that both China and Russia were monitoring the group chat in real time. Intelligence experts all say that it's a given. China and Russia monitor correspondence among top White House officials, and the only way to keep those conversations private is by using secure and encrypted lines. Signal is not one of those. The New York Times dug up a comment by Mike Waltz back when he was a member of Congress, before he became Trump's national security advisor, before he set up the group chats on Signal during the Houthi airstrikes. Waltz said about Trump's indictment for hoarding classified documents at Mar-a-Lago, quote, "How is it Hillary Clinton can delete 30,000 government emails on a private server, yet President Trump gets indicted for having documents he could easily declassify," unquote. Well, he couldn't declassify them because he was no longer president. And secondly, presidents don't have the power to easily declassify documents unilaterally. Under law, documents can only be declassified after the head of the agency that produced those classified documents has signed off on the declassification of these said documents. But why would our national security under the Trump administration know this? Trump throwing him under the bus. Trump said, "Yeah, I figured it was Mike who's to blame for the group chat on Signal." Mike Waltz appeared on Fox News and said he takes full responsibility for including Atlantic Magazine's Jeffrey Goldberg in that group chat, but then added, "It's not my fault." He said he had no idea how Jeffrey Goldberg was included in the chat. He said, "One of my assistants probably included him, but I take full responsibility. The buck stops with me, but it's really not my fault." Trump saying it's your fault. You're the top national security advisor. We're launching an airstrike, and you set up a group chat on Signal instead of a secure encrypted line. But it's not your fault that Jeffrey Goldberg was able to monitor the airstrikes while sitting in a parking lot outside a supermarket. It's your assistant's fault for including Goldberg in the group chat, but you take full responsibility. I wonder if he's going to outlast General Michael Flynn. I think he already has outlasted Michael Flynn. And then there's our Defense Secretary, Pete Hegseth, providing that group chat with all the details before, during, and after the airstrike. The New York Times dug up what Hegseth said about Hillary Clinton's use of a private email server. This is what he said back in 2016 about the email server. Quote, "Any security professional, military, government, or otherwise, would be fired on the spot for this type of conduct and criminally prosecuted for being so reckless with this kind of information." That's what Pete Hegseth said about Hillary's email servers. By the way, what is going on there with Pete Hegseth and the American flag handkerchief in his breast pocket? Like, that makes him patriotic? Yeah, nothing screams love of country more than blowing your nose into old glory. These people don't love our country. Pete Hegseth is a fascist who belongs to a church that believes America is a unicameral Christian nation that must put the Bible before the Constitution. That's not patriotism. It's why we need to bring back the draft, actually. Everyone should be forced to serve 2 years, because without a draft, we end up with opportunistic infections like Pete Hegseth and J.D. Vance, who get to hide behind their service record the same way they hide behind Christianity. They can't wait to tell us they wore the uniform, and by so doing, it makes it harder to question their loyalty. But they're not loyal to this country. They're loyal to white male Christian nationalists. And being in the military doesn't make Hegseth or J.D. Vance more patriotic. It just makes them more dangerous. And that's why we need to bring back the draft. Bringing back the draft means fewer illegal wars, fewer illegal airstrikes overseas, because when everybody has to serve, we pay attention to who we're killing overseas. Do you think those airstrikes on the Houthis in Yemen make Americans safer? If there were a draft, Americans would be paying closer attention to why exactly Trump phoned in those airstrikes. And by the way, everyone disagrees with me. Everyone, liberals, leftists, everyone says I'm wrong for saying bring back the draft. We either have enemies or we don't. And if we have enemies, the best way to suss them out is by requiring all able-bodied Americans to serve 2 years in our military. Well, there have been calls for Hegseth's resignation as the Atlantic magazine releases more details from that Signal chat. During a visit to Hawaii this week, Hegseth revealed he has a new tattoo that says kafir, which is Arabic for infidel. The Council on American Islamic Relations, CARE, America's largest Muslim civil rights and advocacy organization, calling the tattoo, quote, anti-Muslim, especially since Hegseth also has a tattoo that reads Deus Vult, which is Latin for God wills it. The phrase Deus Vult, along with a gigantic symbol tattooed on his chest, is why the National Guard wouldn't allow Pete Hegseth to patrol Biden's 2021 inauguration for fear he was part of a white Christian nationalist sect that was infiltrating our military. The phrase Deus Vult, let me show it to you. This is Pete Hegseth's arm. The phrase Deus Vult and the symbol on his chest, there it is used by neo-Nazi groups. Here, these are some neo-Nazis using the Deus Vult symbol when they stormed the Capitol on January 6th. See the Deus Vult there? And the Deus Vult symbol is used at KKK white nationalist marches like in Charlottesville or anti-Black Lives Matter protests. See, there they go. That's the symbol that our defense secretary, Mike Hegseth, has on his chest. It's why the National Guard wouldn't let him protect Joe Biden in the 2021 inauguration. Here's what CARE, America's largest Muslim civil rights advocacy organization, said about Pete Hegseth's new tattoo. Quote, it appears Islam lives so rent-free in Pete Hegseth's head that he feels the need to stamp himself with tattoos declaring his opposition to Islam, alongside a tattoo declaring his affinity for the failed crusaders who committed genocidal acts of violence against Jews, Muslims, and even fellow Christians centuries ago. That Deus Vult symbol was originally used by the Crusaders when they try to reclaim the Holy Land from Muslims. CARE goes on to say you don't see American Muslims running around with tattoos declaring their opposition to Christianity because we are secure in our own faith. We respect the beliefs of our neighbors, and in any case, most Muslims do not wear tattoos for religious reasons. CARE goes on to say Secretary Hegseth can tattoo himself with whatever he wants, but he should keep in mind that he leads the U.S. Armed Forces, which includes thousands of American Muslims, and that he has sworn to defend the American people, who include millions of American Muslims, unquote. During confirmation hearings, we heard reports of Hegseth leading his friends in drunken chants of kill all Muslims. But during testimony on Tuesday, Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard told the Senate Intelligence Committee that conversations on that group chat didn't involve classified material. New information from The Atlantic magazine shows in that group chat, Pete Hegseth was texting updates on the airstrikes in real time. Here is Democrat Seth Moulton talking about Pete Hegseth's alcoholism.
Accountability is back. Accountability is back. I quote Secretary Pete Hegseth. That was our Secretary of Defense on the record just a couple of months ago. Now the debate among national security professionals is over whether the Secretary was just incompetent or whether he was drunk. That's how low this has gone, and those are serious debates happening among national security professionals today.
Pete Hegseth admitted that he drank a lot, but said he would quit drinking once he became defense secretary, because that's how alcoholics quit. They take high-pressure jobs and cures you of alcoholism in seconds. CIA Director John Radcliffe and Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard testified before the House Intelligence Committee. Democrat Jimmy Gomez asked about Hegseth's drinking.
To your knowledge, do you know whether Pete Hegseth had been drinking before he leaked classified information?
I don't have any knowledge of Secretary Hegseth's personal habits.
Director Radcliffe, same question. Yes or no?
No, I'm going to answer that. I think that's an offensive line of questioning. The answer is no. I find it interesting that you want to... I'm going to answer. You asked me a question, you want an answer?
No, listen,
you don't want to focus on the good work that the CIA is doing, that the intelligence community...
Director, I reclaim my time. Director, I reclaim my time. Here...
You want to focus on all the good work that the CIA is doing. How come you don't ask me about all the women I didn't sleep with when I was married? How come you only focus on all the women I cheated on my wife with? That's how Republicans think. The party that believes in accountability, the party that believes lock everybody up except white men, lock everybody up, when they get called on the carpet, how come you're only focusing on the negative? Well, that's what oversight does. They don't come in and praise you. The Intelligence Committee is supposed to check on your competence. Well, Jimmy Gomez continued the questioning.
This was a question that's on the top of minds of every American. He stood in front of a podium in Europe holding a drink. So, of course, we want to know if his performance is compromised.
Was his performance compromised because of a successful strike?
Mister, I bring my...
you want to know? You want to talk about accepting responsibility? Do you think you should accept responsibility for a successful strike to make Americans safer?
Well, let's peel that back, shall we? A successful strike to make Americans safer. Reuters is reporting 5 children were killed in those airstrikes. That doesn't make us safer. That creates more terrorists. The head of the Houthi Supreme Political Council, Mahdi al-Mashat, said U.S. attacks on them will not stop their attacks on Israel and U.S. ships stationed in the Gulf. He promises more missile attacks against Israel and the U.S. ships in support of Palestinians in Gaza. In the group chat, J.D. Vance revealed his contempt for Europe, texting, "I just hate bailing out the Europeans again." You're not bailing out the Europeans. It's American warships in the Red Sea getting attacked. In the group chat, Pete Hegseth writing, "I fully share your loathing of European freeloading, Mr. Vice President. It's pathetic." You would think the people in charge would know why they're attacking the Houthis. The Houthis are attacking U.S. ships, okay? The world is very complicated. Our White House is run right now by simplistic simpletons who have blind faith in white supremacy. Blind faith means you can never do wrong. It's not your fault. It's somebody else's. Putting secure information on a group chat, that's not my fault. It's Jeffrey Goldberg's fault, the reporter from Atlantic. It's his fault for going public with it. It's the media's fault for reporting on it. That attack on the Houthis talked about in the group chat, well, like I said, it killed 5 children that we know of, including 53 other people that may or may not be Houthi fighters. We don't know because there's a lid on all the information on these airstrikes. The Trump administration keeps saying, why aren't you focusing on a successful airstrike? How is it successful if you killed 5 children? I think we should be focusing on who exactly was among the 53 killed in that airstrike. But we can't because, as I just said, this administration has put a lid on all information coming out of Yemen. And instead, the media is using up all its oxygen, all of its resources, focusing on the group chat. The Senate Intelligence Committee is using all its resources focusing on the group chat than telling us what actually happened on the ground in Yemen. I'd like to know, if that was a successful airstrike, why are the Houthis still firing back at us and launching airstrikes every single day against Israel? Doesn't sound like a successful airstrike to me. And just because Radcliffe, the head of the CIA, calls it a success doesn't make it so. And this, and I know everybody disagrees with me, everybody disagrees with me. This is the problem with an all-volunteer military. The American people don't have enough skin in the game to worry about what is being done in our name by white, racist, male Christian nationalists. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to go give Paula White $1,000 so she can send an angel my way to cure the bug I've got up my ass. I'm David Feldman, reminding you to stay strong and protect the weak. More shows. Please leave a comment. I know you all disagree with me about bringing back the draft. I know all of you do. Let me know in the comments section. Please like this episode. Please share this episode. Please subscribe to this channel. Please hit the notifications bell. I'll see you tomorrow.